cruise on Riviera Travel's Jane Austen will take us from Paris to Le Havre and back in 10 days. Our EasyJet flight from Manchester to Orly was severely delayed by air traffic control strikes at Orly Airport. Nevertheless, we arrive about lunchtime and we have time to enjoy what turned out to be some rare sunshine on this trip. Jane Austen is berthed about 2 kilometres away from the Eiffel Tower and will remain here overnight for tomorrow's trips to Versailles. Jane Austen is very similar to the other Riviera ships we've been on, so the layout is very familiar. The lounge. The trip to Versailles in the morning was an optional extra and got off to a bad start. A window on the coach shattered as we were about to leave, and there was a delay while frantic attempts were made to arrange an alternative. The first part of the visit is to the gardens, some of which are being dug up to be remade in time for the Paris Olympics. The equestrian events will be held here at Versailles. Behind the windows on the central story of this part of the palace is the Hall of Mirrors, which we will see later. Our guided tour of the interior started just after 11 o'clock and lasted about an hour. The crowds were shoulder to shoulder all the way round. Entering the Hall of Mirrors now. This was all designed to show off the power and the majesty of the King, Louis XIV. He was an absolute monarch, and here is his motto in French: "The King governs by himself." We're now in the Queen's private apartments. Back on board, as we set off, we see one of several replicas of the Statue of Liberty in Paris. This one was donated by the United States to Paris in 1889 to commemorate the centenary of the French Revolution. Our first stop out of Paris is Conflans Sainte-Honorine. The excursion from here is to Auvers-sur-Oise to see the place where Van Gogh died and where he is buried. We didn't fancy that, so we just had a wander round Conflans. There are well-maintained wharves for cargo vessels, but the town has very little in the way of cafes on this Monday morning. The Tour Maudois is all that remains of an 11th century fortress. The narrow streets lead up eventually to the church. The church of Saint Maclou is claimed to date from the 10th to the 12th centuries, but it seems pretty obvious that there's been a lot of later renovation and rebuilding. We head back to the ship and wonder how the people who live here manage to get anything delivered. After lunch, the ship sets off towards Rouen, and on the way we pass a couple of places that we'll visit later in the cruise. This is the chateau of La Roche-Guyon, and this is Vernon. Rouen is the main city of the region of Normandy and was the capital of the medieval Duchy of Normandy. Rouen's magnificent Gothic cathedral was started in the 12th century. It was badly damaged during the Second World War and restored in the 1940s and 50s. There are some interesting tombs. This is Rollo the Viking who founded the Norman dynasty and was the great-great-great-grandfather of William the Conqueror. This is Henry the Young King, eldest son of King Henry II of England. He never became king because he died before his father. So the next King of England was Richard I, the Lionheart, whose heart is buried here. The rain put a dampener on our walk around the old town. This is the market square where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake, but it's now raining too hard to continue. And so to Le Havre, where we will stay for 2 days. The first day excursion was to the D-Day landing beaches, which we didn't join in. Le Havre was virtually destroyed in the Second World War. The weather was very rainy, so we stayed mainly on board and mooched around locally for a little while. There's a small, not very interesting shopping mall in one of the converted warehouses nearby. Day 2, the excursion is to Honfleur, which even in this weather is a very pretty town. Our mission is to find, for the first time on this trip, a proper French cafe with proper French coffee and croissants. The Olympic torch is due to be carried through Honfleur later today, hence all the barriers. Mission accomplished. La Maison Bleue, even though it looks more red than blue, is the proper French cafe with proper coffee and really good croissants. St. Catherine's Church was built in the 15th century by shipbuilders out of wood, because that's how they knew to build things. We arrived inside just in time to avoid a torrential downpour. We found another cafe to shelter from the rain. There were lots of school children in the town waiting to cheer on the Olympic flame, and when the rain got really heavy and the flame was delayed, they were hurried away to shelter. Starting our return upriver now, we stop at Caudebec-en-Caux. The most prominent feature of this town is the large Gothic church of Notre Dame from the 15th and 16th centuries. The house of the Templars dates from the 12th or 13th century. The following day we are in Vernon, where the included excursion would take you to Monet's garden at Giverny, but we've been there before, so we decide to stay and look around Vernon. Vernon also has a large Gothic church dedicated to Notre Dame. It's beginning to look like every town in Normandy has a church of Notre Dame. This is the town hall. The remains of the medieval bridge, and at the other end of it, an old water mill. Tourelle Castle was originally built in the 12th century to protect the bridge. The name of this statue is People in English. Ariane Space Group has a large facility in Vernon, hence the model of the Ariane rocket. Crossing back over the river Seine, we get a better view of the size of the Church of Notre Dame. Later that afternoon, we arrive at the Château of La Roche-Guyon. The oldest part of the chateau is the round tower at the top, dating from 1190. Other parts of the chateau were excavated from the hillside. Later, more modern buildings were added outside. Following D-Day in 1944, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel made his headquarters here and repurposed some of the hillside excavations for a bunker. Many of the rooms in the chateau are not open to the public at the moment, and those that are open are mainly used for exhibitions of various kinds. Next morning we are in Mont-la-Jolie. We opted not to go on the included excursion to a chateau we'd already seen, but to stay in the town. We enter the old town through this archway, and lo and behold, another Gothic church of Notre Dame, this one dating back to the 12th century originally. It was Sunday morning and we didn't find a cafe here that was open, but we did find a bakery from which we took away some excellent croissants to have back on the Jane Austen. The next day is our last day on board and we're in Paris again. We have a coach tour of the main sights of Paris, and our comfort break is taken in the Luxembourg Gardens, where we see another one of those replica Statues of Liberty. Our final berth is the same place we left from. We are next to the Parc André Citroën, built on the site of the former Citroën car factory. A 10-minute ride in the tethered balloon will cost €20.